Higher beings, this movie is for you alone. Hollow Knight. It's one of those games you once heard was incredibly good and decided to try it. And suddenly, you're starving for Silksong content and questioning if Silksong is even real or not. I mean, is it totally real, right? Right? Anyway, Hollow Knight is arguably the best indie Metroidvania ever made. Tough challenges, rich in lore, outstanding music, and it is gorgeous. I mean, just look at it. How amazing would it be if it were turned into a movie? Not a live-action movie with real-life bugs. No. I mean, an animated movie with a similar cartoon style to The Nightmare Before Christmas. And even better, it could be a prequel movie showing the Kingdom of Hollow Nest in all of its glory, and we could dive deep into its complicated lore? Well, despite being a zombie movie, Team Cherry intended Hollow Knight to be for all ages, so it would follow as such. Excited so far? Grab your popcorn, and let's descend into that well. The film begins quietly, showing the place that would become the Kingdom of Hollow Nest. We would see giant and strange creatures living in obscure lands touched by the void. And also, we would see a radiant light goddess, worshipped by the Moth tribe. As time passed, the Mothskin and the Mantis tribe were also found living there, among others. The place gradually began to change with the arrival of a gigantic worm. Its presence and mind influence drew other bugs towards him, who then started building a kingdom for himself. Then, the pale worm shrank from its colossal size and dwelt among its subjects as the Pale King, inhabiting its own white palace with the company of the White Lady Queen. As the Kingdom of Hollow Nest flourishes, the light of the radiant light diminishes. But, unexpectedly, in the land of purple crystals, its light shone again, stronger and angrier than ever. This brief visual introduction would last around 10 minutes. After that, we will descend into the capital city, later known as City of Tears, seeing through the eyes of the telescope from the Watcher's spire. The Watcher observes the daily life of the city, bugs and beasts bustling below, stag beetles carrying others across the city, and spending a significant time observing the songstress Marissa. The Watcher's gaze follows a dizzy bug, and, as he had expected, the bug's eyes flare orange, and he attacks everyone around. With bugs scattering in terror, a large knight in full armor appears. It was Hegemol who would deal with this menace from now on. That was just the beginning of the incidents, and after a quick fast forward, there were pustules of goo scattered all over the place, with areas dominated by aggressive bugs. We would see how bad the infection was plaguing the kingdom as we follow the 5 great knights on their mission to seek aid from the important mines of Hollow Nest, obeying the orders of their Pale King. Hegemol visits the Snail Shaman in Ancestral Mound, and later Lurien in the Watcher's Spire. Isma would try to communicate with Un in Green Path, and later would have a philosophical debate with Monomon the teacher, and that would greatly impact her worldviews. Ogrim visits the large mushroom of the Mushroom Clan, and later the Moth tribe. In the meantime, an incident with a warrior named Zero, who believed he could fight the infection with just his nail and a little bit of good old violence. He destroyed as much goo as he could, but he was not aware that his mind had already been plagued, because he tried to attack the Pale King himself. He was eventually defeated, and the King's Molds arrested him to be executed later. After that, Dryya visited Queen Vespa in the Beehive, and later Queen Hera in the Deep Nest. Hera wished to bargain with the Pale King in person because her sire had died, and she was of common descent, but wanted an offspring from the king who was a higher being. Hera would only help the king under that condition, and that would open a new chapter in the relationship between their domains, as Deep Nest had been ferociously resistant to the kingdom's influences. The Pale King agreed, and the White Lady did not oppose, but instead, she was curious about the offspring of that union. Ze'mer wanted to see the Mantis tribes because of her risky relationship with the daughter of the Mantis Lord, as she was not welcomed for being an outsider. Ze'mer would try to comfort her lover by giving her a delicate flower. Her lover secretly revealed that her own Mantis tribe was trying to infect themselves to gain new powers. In the Soul Sanctum, the Scholar's Master received news about the 5 Grey Knights' mission as they visited many places in Hallownest, except for the Soul Sanctum. And to that, he cursed the king for not being selected as a worthy candidate. In the Colosseum of Fools, the Pale King is informed about the birth of Hera's child, but he is too amused watching the other offspring fight in the arena. It was a tall knight in white armor, holding a long nail, the Hollow Knight. After it defeats that challenge, its eyes and the Pale King's meet, and they remain locked as the scenery behind them changes to a dark cave. The king's servants are chaining the Hollow Knight and binding spells around it. The king departs, and a radiant orange light glows behind them. The Pale King remembers no cost too great as he leaves the temple, never to see his chosen vessel ever again. As agreed before, Lurien and Hera would lie down and dream. But before Monomon joined them, she gave her apprentice Quirrell a strange mask. 3 masked seals appeared at the door of the Black Egg Temple, muffling the roars that were coming from inside. The orange pustules of goo shrink fast, and many infected bugs and beasts all over the kingdom would feel like they just woke up from a strange dream. At this point, the movie would be about an hour long. Once more, there was peace in the kingdom, allowing it to flourish and prosper again. Many praises and worship were given to the Pale King for saving them from the plague. A monument of the 3 dreamers and the Hollow Knight was built in the capital city, and by looking at it, the Pale King remembered the moments he had with his chosen vessel. No mind to think, no will to break, no voice to cry suffering. Born of God and void, the perfect vessel was needed to seal the blinding light of their dreams. But the Pale King loved that vessel too much to see the small hints that it was not truly hollow. Then a brief scene of a black lake in the darkness, and the light of a lighthouse outlining it. Much later, an incident occurred in the city, but not because of the infection, but to the result of the crazy experiments the Scholar Master was doing with souls. The Great Knights were sent to battle that giant soul monstrosity, and after defeating it, the Pale King ordered the destruction of the Scholar's research and to seize the Scholar Master, but he had already escaped. Rumors about the infection's return were common in the kingdom, but not much was done about it as the Pale King was often absent and lost in the memories he shared with his chosen vessel. On one occasion, we would follow a Menderbug making his ways through a painful path to the throne room, and after he finally arrived, he reported everything that had been going on for the king, mentioning the infection and even exploding bugs, and how it was making the joyful days of their guild unhappy. The Pale King was too invested in his buzzsaw hobby to pay any attention to that poor bug, and every time he tried talking, the king would turn his loud buzzsaws to muffle the sound. After being done playing with the Menderbug, the Pale King sent him away. He then looked with disapproval at his royal retainers. They would apologize and try to explain that there were already too many saws, but the king would only reply, "More saws." The White Lady was uninterested in ruling the king's kingdom, and she regretted all the effort and the sacrifices made to save the kingdom. All of those countless vessels that failed to be hollow were her children after all, and she was only responding to her insatiable desire to spread her seeds. Instead, she would be focusing her attention on the Queen's garden and the ongoing troubles with the mantises. It was through the White Lady that Ze'mer was informed about the sudden death of her lover, the traitor lord's child. Ze'mer went to visit her grave despite how dangerous it would be, and after finding it, Ze'mer placed a delicate flower on her grave, but it was suddenly stepped on by a mantis, and many others arrived and tried to kill her. Ze'mer managed to escape alive, longing for an opportunity to give her lover a delicate flower, because from the place she is from, those flowers are highly revered. It would be visible that all of those mantises had orange eyes and were already consumed by the infection, and it did not take long before it started plaguing the kingdom of Hallownest once again. With the Pale King's absence, bugs and beasts were left at their own luck to save themselves. Thus, many of them still long for their king's return. The practice of wearing masks had grown during this time. The Soul Master found this to be the perfect opportunity to lure bugs to use in his forbidden soul experiments. If the Pale King would not save the kingdom, he would. But one day, the Pale King reappeared. He wished to visit the monument of the Hollow Knight in the capital city again, and preparations were made to carry him through the infected city. As for the White Lady, she could no longer tolerate staying there, and took Dryya and Ze'mer to escort her to the Queen's garden once and for all. For the last section of the movie, there would be around 30 minutes to end. Ogrim, Hegemol, and Isma escorted the Pale King with the King's Mold, and together they defeated all of the infected bugs on their way. But they could barely find a route to reach the city because the kingdom had been abandoned, and barely anything was functioning anymore. The once glorious and populated kingdom of Hallownest was now a shadow of what it used to be, and seeing that filled them with sadness, especially the Pale King. When Ogrim saw Isma in tears, he asked Hegemol, knowing he was a humorous knight, to cheer them up. Not long before they arrived at the capital city, a massive earthquake took place, and it could also be felt by Ze'mer, Dryya, and the White Lady, who were on the other side, almost reaching the Queen's garden. When it stopped, something strange happened. It was raining in this underground city. After so much trouble, they managed to reach the statue of the Hollow Knight in this city of tears. Seeing all of this filled the Pale King with even greater sadness. He gave minds to bugs and beasts and transformed that unformed land into Hallownest, the last and only civilization, the Eternal Kingdom. By looking at the statue, the Pale King remembered the moments with his beloved vessel and recited to himself, "No cost too great to ease his pain." And then, the king ordered the Great Knights to complete shutdown of the city, as he would leave with the King's Mold. The Pale King desired to build an eternal kingdom, and after foresigning its ruins, he decided he would never witness his kingdom fall. In his dreams, it would live forever. From the Queen's part, Ze'mer was ahead, navigating through the lushes, but at a certain point, she stopped and told Dryya to escort the White Lady to a safe place alone. Ze'mer was not even allowed to visit her lover's grave because of her father, the Traitor Lord. So she was going to fight him for it, and she would not rest until she could have a final moment with her lover. Ze'mer went in the direction of the mantises until the Traitor Lord himself dove before her, and their fight began. We would see some of the action, but not how it ends. Instead, it would shift to Dryya helping the White Lady to hide inside a cave. When she's safe, mantises start to arrive, and the fierce Dryya stands in guard to protect her queen. As the Pale King had left, it was in the hands of Ogrim, Hegemol, and Isma to cut across the city and close it, and they separated themselves one last time. In the final parts of the movie, we would see many battles in parallel against hordes of infected bugs, and each of the Great Knights is fighting against time to complete their missions. Each knight went to a different entrance. Ogrim at the resting grounds, Hegemol at the gates of fungal wastes, and Isma at the royal waterways. Ogrim was the first to close the passage and went after Isma to help her. Finally, Hegemol closed the last passage of the city, and all turned to black. a violent roar is heard, and to answer to that roar, a wandering knight walks towards Hallownest after being hungry. And that concludes the movie. What are your thoughts on this? Did you like it? Leave it in the comments below. Also, consider giving a like and subscribing to help our channel, and we could bring more content like this in the future. Until next time. Also, don't forget there's a post-credit scene at the end of this video. In a brief scene, we're back at the Black Lake in the darkness. The lighthouse now has black tentacles all over it. And suddenly, it is turned off. And darkness reigned again.